Club. This is our January 2018 edition. We are on the third Sunday of every month. We talk, we review or talk about a cancer-relevant book, movie, media phenomenon. And today's phenomenon is going to be a prostate cancer survivor and author of With a Snap of a Glove, and prostate cancer advocate, Dan Hennessey, who's talking today about his journey, his experience, his authorship of his book. And we have usually what we do, we kind of start off with a series of questions sometimes, but then it kind of often turns into a free for all. So be ready for, I know you'll be ready for whatever comes your way. But I guess I read your book. I guess I read it in the fall. And at that time, I was not near undergoing chemotherapy, as you see, but I'm having my own surgery in a couple of days. But I read through all your experiences with surgery and with all of those things. So I guess one of my first questions that I have is, at what point did you decide to write a book about your experiences, and what about your experiences made you think, let's write a book?
Well, I was diagnosed in 2006. And after being operated on for prostate cancer and having the prostate removed, I then had follow-up radiation, external beam radiation therapy. So there was a long healing process that kicked in following that. And I was always a reader, but I was never a writer. And I always had these crazy ideas in my head, but just never took time to actually put pen to paper. And I sat down on a trip that I was on, and I started writing, and it was more for just therapeutic reasons. I'd write down a few things about what had happened, and then I wrote down a few more things. It was very much, I jokingly tell people it was very much like a Forrest Gump thing. One day Forrest started running, and he ran and he ran and he ran and he ran, and then one day he stopped. And that's what I did. I just kept writing about the different things and different stages through diagnosis and through treatment and then recovery. I looked at it and I said, I wonder if anybody else would be interested in hearing my point of view. And reading it, Robin, I think you understand that I do enjoy some humor, and I think it's important because it's a miserable subject. I mean, literally, you can't laugh at cancer, but you can make fun of it, and I figure if prostate cancer decided to pick on me, then I'm going to start picking on prostate cancer, and I'm very much into the don't get mad, get even. So there was a friend of mine, and I said to him, I told him what I had done, and he said, I'd love to read it. So I let him read it, and he said, we should get this in a book form. And I said, do you think anybody would enjoy it? And he said, yeah, I think so. So that's, it was more for my own personal therapeutic reason that I started writing some of my thoughts down. And, I gave the manuscript to my wife after it was done, and I said, what do you think? And she said, there's a piece missing. And I said, well, what do you mean? I said, what were you hoping for, a different ending? And she said, no. She said, there's two things that you worry about for three for prostate cancer. One is obviously erectile dysfunction. One is incontinence, and I always said the third one is death. You can live with the first. Two. Yeah, you can live with the first two. The third one has a real negative impact on your ability to live.
Yeah. On the first two, it actually cures the first two remarkably.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So she said, the piece about the whole after when you heal and when life gets back to normal in a marriage. And I said, well, that's kind of personal. She said, no, you've shared everything else. She said, you need to share that piece. So that's when I went back down and I wrote the chapter. And as I was writing it, that crazy song came to my head, You Can't Hurry Love. And it's true, you can't. You need to heal. So I, that was the reason that I wrote it. It was for me. And then I felt that maybe other people could get a benefit from hearing my distorted story, I guess, a little bit, and get some benefit, either people that are going through or people that have already gone through.
What kind of feedback have you got from readers on that score?
Most people that read the book say, I read it, I laughed, I cried, then I laughed some more, and then I cried some more. And but at the end of it, they said when they were laughing, they had never gotten so much out of something so humorous in their entire life. My urologist wrote
Yeah,
the foreword for the
yeah,
book, and I mean, Greg Bailey is a genius. Um, he said, you kind of over exaggerated the biopsy a little bit, and I said, well, no, not from my perspective, I didn't. I said, you were at the other end.
yeah,
You were throwing, and I was a
yeah.
receiver. And I said, but you know something, Greg? I said, I'm hoping that somebody that reads the book and then goes through the biopsy, the first thing they'll say when they come out of the biopsy is saying, Hennessey, he was a bit of a wimp. It wasn't that bad. And, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, I'm touched and responsive to your book, where you're talking about, the dysfunction aspects and stuff, because I remember having a similar kind of conversation with my own spouse around the Cancer Olympics, because there's sort of super personal pieces about I had colorectal cancer, and there's radiation to the pelvis that has all kinds of consequences for women's lady bits and so on. And so I thought, do I put that in? And he would say, you have to put it in. You have
Yeah.
to put it in, even though it violates my privacy as well. If you don't, there's zillions of women out there who will never know that there's things that women can do to prevent serious functional, very serious functional outcomes, and not just around their sexuality, but their whole body will be destroyed if they don't take protective action, which they have a little window of opportunity to take. You have a window of doing it so many weeks after radiation. If you don't do it in that period, you will suffer lifetime consequences.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, healing is it's a continuous journey for any cancer. It truly is. I mean, I'm still feeling the results 12 years later. Um, Again, the other option, the third option, I'm okay with those. If I have to put something on, if I'm participating in an athletic sport, I'm okay with that because I still get to do it.
yeah,
And so absolutely. And I'm hoping that when people that have read it, it's meant something to them. Now I've got a good friend of mine that told me the other night, came up to me and told me that he's been diagnosed with prostate cancer. And I said, "You've read my book?" He said, "I read it twice, and my wife has since read it to me once." So I'm okay.
yeah,
I had another guy call me and say, "I'm currently in hospital." And he said, "I just had prostate cancer surgery." And he said, I read your book while I was in the hospital. And he said, the nurse came in and I was laughing. And she said, "Why are you laughing?" He said, "Because I knew you were going to do that." And he held the book up and he said, "He told me it would happen." I'm thinking, great.
I'd like to go back to something. It really interests me. You're saying 12 years out, you're still dealing with the healing process. Would you talk about that a little bit?
Well, obviously, like I said, the erectile dysfunction and the incontinence were always the two potential side effects from prostate cancer surgery. And you can, on the incontinence scale, 0 being perfect and 5 being totally incontinent. I came out of the whole surgery probably around a 3. And it was just, I mean, they use nerve sparing technology and techniques these days a lot more than they ever did before, because before it used to be gone
yeah,
and
yeah.
you'd be totally incontinent. So they're using, better techniques to ensure a better outcome. But again, had dribbles. And then following probably about a year afterwards, my urologist said, "Let's try a male sling." And I said, "Okay." I said, "But my arm doesn't hurt at all." And he said, "It's not for your arm." He said, "It's just to give you a little support." I said, "Okay." So we went through that surgery when they implanted this male sling. And it didn't work because I was the recipient of 33 treatments of external beam radiation,
Yes, yes, yes.
which changes the texture of one's skin
Right.
from skin-like to leather-like. So it never really, the tissues in and around where the sling was supposed to give that warm hug, never really did the warm hug. So it really was totally ineffective. So probably about a year after that, he said, great news. They have now designed one specifically for people that have had radiation therapy. And I said, great. I said, you take the other one out? No, he said, we'll leave that one in too. I said, perfect. Slam another one in. So we put the other one in, and that took me from where I was probably about a 3 down to about a 1.5. And I'm okay with that. So yes, I'm still, if I yell at the kids, really yell at the kids. Oh, crap.
So that puts you
And
on par with every middle-aged woman that ever was.
my wife, she'll say, have 2 kids.
Right?
He
Yeah.
said,
Yes,
sneezing.
you have much more understanding.
Yeah,
Very understanding, honey.
I sneeze, and it's a journey in fear.
Yeah, I understand.
So yeah, to answer your question, Pat, I mean, there's still those types of things. I had an incident probably about 3 years ago that I was doing some heavy lifting of some boards. We were building a garage, and I said, I need to go to the bathroom. So I turned around the corner where we were building, and I went, oh, blood. Don't think that's supposed to happen. But the blood vessels become weakened from the radiation. And they can burst. And my urologist said, you're not going to bleed to death. He said, it's not a big deal. It'll stop. So, am I the same? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Am I okay with not being exactly the way I was before? You bet.
Because the alternative is, as you say, the third alternative, which is,
not an alternative.
You've just had a newborn baby girl, right? You just can't.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I found out the diagnosis, I left it to my urologist. I said, I'm 49 years old. What do I do? He said, you're 49 years old. You're healthy. He said, I say, take it out. I said, I'm fine. Let's go. Do it.
Yeah.
What do I know? I'm just a guy with prostate cancer. You're the specialist.
Well, that's the other thing, I guess, about prostate cancer generally is that there are many, many options. And, today, certainly now, many more even than your day, 10 years ago. So there are many options in all these other things. And many men are like, I don't know what to choose. One of the things that I'm sort of proud about the Canadian Cancer Society for doing, or they did do for a good long period of time, is that they had an information line where a man newly diagnosed could phone and say, can I speak to someone who's had each of those different treatments, because I want to know what my long-term is going to look like with radiation, with surgery, with chemotherapy, without those things, or any combination. And they would do that. And I have male friends that phoned as many as 6 different men to get, and they all were survivors, of course, but they were all able to say, and with frankness, this is what I'm like now. This is how I was left after this. And so men are better able to make choices beyond just saying to the urologist, what would you do if it were you?
Yeah, exactly. And again, I really didn't, as I said to Pat before we went on air, I said, I was 49, I was healthy. I played probably 3 games of hockey a week. I ran, I played golf, little girl. And I didn't even know I had a prostate, nor did I know what it did. I mean, prostate cancer is so different from others.
That's right.
There's no pain. There's no lump. You go to the bathroom a little bit more initially is usually the trigger. And it wasn't until I switched doctors and switched family doctors, that was back in the old days when you could do that, that this guy he was a no-nonsense doctor. And he said, look, you haven't had this test for the last 2 years. And let's do it. You're here. And I did it. And he noticed an abnormality, shipped me off to the urologist. He did the same test and then the biopsy, and they found it. And they felt that I probably had it for 2 years.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about PSA testing, because I
Oh,
know that you've been a fervent advocate of that being done, and me too. I like, anyway. But but I also know you've had some pushback on that. I've seen
oh,
in the
really?
paper and others where various people saying, "Oh no, PSA is not specific. Men shouldn't do it. If you get it and it's terrible, no one should care." Like, to me, I'm just out of my mind with that when I see that stuff. So I'd like to invite you to talk a little
No,
bit about PSA and the pushback you've had,
no, it
or
doesn't
your
bother me at
advocacy for
all.
people to have PSA testing. I'll let you talk, because I could talk a lot about this.
Well, I did the video. The first video was Dad, we need to, and I thought, maybe we do these PSA type videos. Ironically, a PSA type video.
Yes, yeah, public service
Yes.
announcement.
But so I came up with the idea, and my urologist, Greg Bailey, he participated, and he said a simple blood test, blah 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 blah. Well, this video is all about a young girl
Yeah.
who had heard the story. You've seen it. Had heard the story in school, came home, sat her father down, and told her father how important it is for him to take control of his health, go to see his doctor. So my goal was, I really hoped that the kids that got to see this would run right home right away and corner their father, their brothers, their uncles, whoever, and have that talk with them. And if nothing else, they would have that information and that knowledge in their head as they grow older. And the social regional school board was all ready to put this into the schools. And when the video came out, Cancer Care Nova Scotia slammed the door on it because the doctor did not believe that PSA testing was the be all end all. And I tried to explain to him, he was a very knowledgeable doctor, I thought, that a PSA test alone is not the ultimate. But if the PSA detects an abnormality in that level, then I said it's very much like putting a yellow flag up on a flagpole. You don't go from green to red. Put the yellow flag up, and then go talk to your health professional for possible further testing. It's not a matter of, oh, your PSA is high, lay down, we're going to cut you open.
Right.
And he caused so much grief over this that basically he told the social regional school board that they should not show this in the schools.
I remember seeing that in the paper at the time in Nova Scotia, and I remember being appalled, frankly, about that. That it just seems like it's just like taking one weapon out of the tool of the arsenal of patients to say you can't use this, it's not appropriate. When really it seemed to me that what you were saying is, if PSA is high, that's concerning. Many men can have a normal PSA but still have prostate cancer. So in that way, it is not unlike mammography. I have lots of women with breast cancer who did not have it detected on mammography. Just because the test is fallible by times doesn't mean it shouldn't be followed by family doctors in a judicious way. I have dozens of friends who've had high PSAs over years and years, and it goes up and up and up to as high as 300, and have family doctors say, PSA doesn't mean anything. And of course, these men have stage 4 prostate cancer now.
And and what I was trying to do, and everything I've done in my advocacy role since going through this journey, is I've tried to give and tried to encourage men to take control over their health.
Thank you. It's an issue of empowerment.
Well, and as I said before, prostate cancer is not just about you guys. It affects everybody around you. It affects, the wife, the daughter, the sons. So it's not just a guy's problem.
Yes.
And so I'm trying to encourage people to take control. I'm trying to encourage them to get out there and be proactive with their health and their healthcare professionals. And, go to see your doctor. And then all of a sudden you get this guy saying, oh, no, that's just, that'll be a false positive. And you don't need to do that. So I'm thinking, why would you do that? Why would you take away a piece of the incentive for men to take control of their health by doing something like that?
And something that's so easy, something so straightforward as a blood test. It's not like a colonoscopy or something super invasive. It's something very easily done. I had a close friend, and you could not be a more fit man for that. He'd run the Boston, I don't know how many times. He was fitness personified, and he was 49 years old. And he was in his doctor's office, and he looked up on the wall, and he saw a sign there for advertising PSA. And he said, I'm here for my physical. Fitness. I'm a fitness god. I'll just ask the doctor to do the PSA just because I saw the poster on the wall. Sure enough, stage 3. And he died a number of years ago of the disease because it was too late.
Yeah.
So although he was 12 years, here was a man, no symptoms, and a man who ate like a god and worked out like a god, but still had prostate cancer. And the only way it was ever going to be detected in his case was through that PSA, because no one would ever have suspected it.
It was very disappointing. I mean, they said that if the doctor could take that out, they might consider. And I'm thinking, here is one of the most respected urologists in the country, and you're asking him to go back on something he believes in. And I said to Greg, I said, no, we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
We are not going to do it.
Mm.
But no, there's been a lot of pushback. I mean, patient navigators in the hospitals, in the social regional hospital, I offered to give them a large quantity of books that they could just, if they felt like, give out to you, because it was not an approved publication by Cancer Care Nova Scotia. So, and I said, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, informational resources like yours come to the attention of the internet, because that isn't controlled by governments or whatever. Right? So we're sort of crowdsourcing.
I think
because we try to make sure that life-saving. Sorry, Pat, you were saying?
Yeah, no, it goes back to something Dan said earlier, which I think is incredibly important for anybody listening. And that is gathering anecdotal information from people who have been in a similar circumstance as you are, with a similar diagnosis, is invaluable. You will learn things that the medical profession may not know, that they don't pass along. You'll round out the type of information you need. You can get online and look up all the medical information studies in the world, but it doesn't give you any idea of what the human experience is actually like and what you're actually facing. And I think that forums like this, forums, all the things that you've been doing, Dan, as an advocate for prostate cancer, are incredibly important for exactly that reason. You need to talk to real people.
One of the things that Dr. Bailey did in his office, he had several boxes of books, and every one of the residents that would come through the urology program at the hospital, they would be given a copy of the book to read, because Greg felt that it was so important for them to understand from the patient's perspective what it's like, so that they will have a better understanding of how they deal with patients.
I think that's super critical, because there is no substitute for the patient narrative. Particularly the patient is the one who has the issues with diet, the issues with sexuality, the issues with their workplace. It's only the patient narrative that contains all of the things that these guys just read about as articles.
Oh.
They don't know the whole story. And as humans, we like stories. We like to hear it as a story. And what I particularly appreciated about your book, Dan, was the humor, which I think was a way of, even the most terrified person would be drawn into the story, because it was so funny by times, because you use such funny euphemisms for, where the sun don't shine, sort of thing.
Well, softening that with humor, you're right. I think people have the tendency to absorb it a little bit more. But again, pieces about going through, I was going through prostate cancer and the follow-up treatments while my mother was going through stage 4 lung cancer. And, that's that other piece. Because as I've said so many times, cancer doesn't care what's going on in your life when it decides to come to visit. It doesn't care if you're rich or poor or happy or sad or whatever, busy, lazy. It's just there. And in my case, I had, my mother was dying, and I was going to her hospital room, catheter in hand, and sitting with her as in her final days. And I say to people, I said to hold the hand of the woman that gave you life, take her last breath, is a powerful motivator to help other people.
Yeah, I've been through that experience myself, so I was very much responded to that part of your book.
So did that answer your question a little bit, Pat? Or
Yeah, very much. I just I think the value. I think the internet has so changed things because it's opened up these types of discussions to people, and I think it's just a really essential part of figuring your own personal path through this cancer maze that everybody faces, and everybody makes different decisions, and that's perfectly appropriate and as it should be. Excuse me. But I think hearing the stories of others really helps guide us all.
And not everybody that goes through prostate cancer feels the ability to open up and to be, really open up your personality. I've got a number of people that I've known over the years and that have come up to me and said, I don't know if you knew or not, I had prostate cancer, but nobody outside the family knows. And that's a personal decision that you have to make. And I guess because my personality is not that, I wanted to stand up and tell everybody. And, as I mentioned to you earlier, Pat, I said, because I went through prostate cancer, because I went through all of the pieces that are prostate cancer, is probably why I'm doing what I do today, and I'm the type of person I am today. Now I can't stop writing. So
is there another book?
I don't know if that's a result of the surgery or the radiation. But now I do a lot of journalism in the local newspapers, and I love it.
Do we hear another book there?
I'm not sure, because somebody said to me one time, they said, what about life after? And I said, well, I'm not sure if there's that much of a story, because I said I can take it to the very end, but I said that'll be a long time from now. A long time. But the videos have helped. I did the video with Dad. We need to talk, and of course through social media that has circulated around the world, and it's been very, very widely accepted. It's been added to websites and social media posts all over the world. And I've made a lot of friends through prostate cancer awareness groups, Australia, New Zealand, all through the United States and Canada. Then the follow-up video was, take the next step. Because I really wanted to, okay, now that I have prostate cancer, what in the heck do I do? And so I went out and I solicited a whole bunch of people to add that little tagline, like, come on, guys, take the next step. And our current Prime Minister was gracious enough to send me a clip both in French and English, and I was surprised at some of the people that I asked that turned it down, and I'm thinking, really? Okay.
Yeah, really.
Well, yeah, that'll be another book for another time. With people that said no to me, yeah, okay. But so I mean, it's been great. I still, every Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, I usually do an interview with one of the local radio personalities. I kind of feel like I'm the color commentator for prostate cancer sometimes, but yeah, it never gets old. I still enjoy talking about it. I enjoy people coming to me, as my friend did the other night, and confided in me that outside of the family nobody knows, and here's my options. What do you think? And I'm always very cautious when people ask me that question, because what I try to do is I say, okay, here's how old I was. Here was my general health. Here was all of the factors, and here's what we decided to do for me. Because there's no way that I'm going to say, oh, you need surgery.
Yeah.
Go get surgery.
Yeah.
because that may not be the right solution for that person. Maybe hormonal treatment, would be the right one. Maybe chemotherapy, maybe external beam radiation. Who knows? But I try to tell them my situation and what worked for me and why I'm okay with it. And then ultimately, it's between that person, their family, and their medical practitioner is the decision.
But I think the value of a book like yours goes beyond what treatment options and those kinds of considerations, because you take the reader through the journey of being completely shocked by the world of it. So I remember when you were writing about going to your very first support group meeting, and then the people were coming out with these sort of devices. This is what I do to help my penis. And you're like, oh my God, like what kind of a world is this? I don't know anything about this world. And you were so shocked in describing the this is way over my head. I never dreamed I'd be having conversation about this kind of topic with a bunch of strangers.
Well, I kind of thought it was like 50 Shades of Prostate Gray.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember you describing it, but that's what. But for the reality of the newly diagnosed, that is their reality. They're suddenly thrown into this world where they're going, you mean I'm going to have to do what?
You want me to stick a needle where?
Yes.
Oh, no.
You can't be serious. You cannot be serious. You can't be meaning. And then you're gradual as you work through the book, or as me as a female reader going through the rest of it, thinking gradual acceptance of, yes, I do have to do this, and yes, I am going to have to do this, and this is how you make peace with having to do that kind of thing. And then it stops being weird and starts becoming the new normal, and it becomes something that is part of moving forward. And so to me, the path from your initial shock through to your acceptance of the options and sort of humorously describing the path there, to me, that is invaluable for every cancer patient, because everyone who's newly diagnosed has to go, I can't believe I'm facing that world. I can't believe that's in front of me.
And to go from the initial visit with your oncologist or your urologist, where everything was so gray and such taboo, to going into the latter appointments and him saying, the first thing he says to you, hey Dan, how you doing? How's your erections? And I used to say, oh, not bad, how are yours? And he'd say, how's your flow? I said, Greg, I could take those books off your counter from here. So, it just changed totally.
Yeah, what you thought was a completely impermissible topic at one time in your life suddenly becomes, oh yeah, and there's nothing like colorectal cancer for that topic too. It's like topics suddenly are like, oh yeah.
I did a TV interview with Breakfast Television when it was still called Breakfast Television, and I remember Maria Panapallis, the host, she interviewed me and we were talking about it, and she looked at me and she said, so Dan, I got to ask you a question. She said, prostate cancer is a very personal thing, and there's a lot of personal aspects going through this. She said, aren't you the least bit embarrassed to talk about it? And I looked at her and I said, Maria, I've had more hands up my behind than Kermit the Frog. And she didn't know what to say, and she said, well, I guess time for commercial.
Well, that's a whole other aspect of the cancer experience, is that humiliation takes a total. There's nobody who's had cancer has not experienced significant humiliation in every form that means. I don't have breasts, or I don't have, I have the hand up the where and all that. So most cancer patients have experienced some significant humiliation somewhere along the line that makes talking about things like that's nothing compared to going through it.
You laugh at these things because at the time they were such an emotional impact to your system that to help get other people through it, I mean, it's humorous when you had a student nurse trying to pull off a dressing that, and the hair hadn't been removed, and she was almost crying, and I'm laughing. And I'm saying, as she's trying to get it off, and I'm saying, this is the worst place I've ever been waxed in my entire life. And I'm thinking the poor girl is probably now working in the cafeteria because she couldn't do it anymore.
Yes, I
So
experienced the waxing, an unasked for waxing. I've actually literally experienced that scene myself in
yeah.
the hospital.
So no, it's been a journey, and I think it's after my first video came out, I received an email from a lady in Omaha, Nebraska, and she said, "I just want to thank you for doing your video." She said, "My husband, who was a typical man, he, never wanted to go to the doctor, and he said, and watched it. And she said she bugged the heck out of her father until he gave in and went to the doctor and was diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Wow.
And she said he went through surgery and he is fine. She said, I just want to say thank you for saving my husband and my daughter's father. And, I sat back and I said, wow, it made a difference.
Yeah, I've had similar experiences with respect to the Cancer Olympics. Quite a number of people say, "Oh, because of your book, I went and got screened, and sure enough, I had." And then my cancer was prevented, my cancer was detected, I got early treatment, and that's so and so. I've had people phone me on Christmas Eve saying they're on their knees, thanking God for the book because it's just
Yeah.
or the story of the book because it led to the salvation of their loved one.
It makes you feel good, it makes you feel that you went through this for a reason.
Well, and if you're going to go through something like that, it's got,
Gotta be a
if you're going to
reason.
go through it anyway, it should happy that it would have a positive spin-off in
Yeah,
terms of
absolutely.
saving lives,
Absolutely.
increasing awareness. So, so
Any,
another question that we often ask our authors is, if you were to go on to write more, what would you write about?
I think a lot of it is, I've thought about it, and I mean, the book is called "With the Snap of a Glove," and I've got a title in my head, and maybe it's going to be called "After the Snap," and to talk about some of the advocacy things that have happened, the videos, and some of the more personal aspects of that. So, is there enough for another one? Yeah, probably. I was very fortunate this time. Abbott Labs, which is now, of course, AbbVie, I was connected with those folks before I released the book, and they actually pre-ordered 4,000 copies of the book and gave it to the representatives across Canada to give out at urologist offices across Canada. So that was huge to be able to
Wow.
get that kind of distribution right off the bat. And but yeah, I mean, it's there. It's in the words are in there. It's just a matter of taking time, I guess, to sit down and say what's next.
I have another question that has nothing to do with cancer. I see from your Facebook that you are an honorary colonel. Can you
Yes, I
tell
am.
me what an honorary colonel is?
Well, actually, it's a position with the Royal Canadian Air Force, part of the Canadian military. There's 70 honorary colonels in the Air Force across Canada. And back in the old days when this honorary colonel came up, and the role of the honorary is a liaison between the active squadron and the community. So in the past, what they always used to do is take retired military officers and then make them an honorary colonel. So it's something that the Minister of Defense signs off on, so it goes high up the ladder. But what they found was that the retiring military officers in a particular area were never generally from that area. So they really weren't ingrained or involved in the community to any great event. So then they started to reach out to leaders in the community, sports figures, a whole raft of people that they felt could bring more of a community involvement and more of a national. So Lorena McKenna, for example, is an honorary colonel of the Canadian Air Force. Terry Kelly is an honorary colonel for 14 Wing in Greenwood. So there's lots of people across the country, but there's 70 of us, and we're a motley crew. But I'm actually the honorary colonel for 14 Construction Engineering Squadron, which actually has groups from Newfoundland all the way to British Columbia. So I have geographically a very large group of people. So it gives me an opportunity to work with the Canadian military and to give back to our military that gives so darn much for us. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, these are great people. They're dedicated men and women, and I just love them to death. And it's a true honor to be their honorary colonel.
Oh, that sounds delightful.
It is.
So I'm going to turn it over to Pat and or Marion if there's any questions that you want to add or raise for Dan today.
No, I just want to really say thank you so much. I appreciate your taking the time to come on and talk about this and share some of your experiences. I've been like you. I was diagnosed in 2009, and I think over the years, running into people, talking to people, hearing other people's stories, sharing ways that you cope and you deal and you stay healthy has just been invaluable. And I know this discussion will be invaluable for other people out there too. So just thank you very, very much.
Oh, thank you, Pat.
And how about you, Marion? Do you have something that you'd like to ask or add? You're muted right now. I guess you'd have to unmute.
Okay, I just unmuted myself.
Hey, Marion.
Hi. My father and my brother both had prostate cancer, treated very differently. And it would have been helpful to have had your book to give to my brother, who went through this silently. I work with him. I encourage him to have follow-up. He's very, very reluctant to do anything. He's now a widower. So I'm really the only person that has any sway with him. And it's difficult. He never went to any groups. And I think, certainly for myself, being a part of this group has been invaluable. And, I think with really many situations, health-wise and other, that having a support system is really the most important thing that you can do for yourself. Information and support. So I appreciate your work, and I will be giving my brother a copy of your book. So.
Good. Well, ask him if he likes the ending.
Will do.
Yes, it had a happy ending.
Happy ending, Barry. Yes, exactly.
Now, so I think that kind of brings us to the end here of Cancer Book Club for this month. And next month, I'm afraid I'm going for major pelvic surgery in a couple of days. So I'm going to be offline for next month's Cancer Book Club, hopefully back online for the month after. So Pat, next month is going to be, who is our guest next month?
We have Charles Porter, who's going to be on, and Charles is wonderful. We'll be talking about one of his books of poems. Charles is a wonderful person, fascinating person. He went to Duke, was slated to go to the NFL with a back injury that derailed his dreams and his plans totally. He started actually modeling over in Europe, which led to an acting career. And now he's a very accomplished Hollywood actor. He's produced several films and he's written several books. So we'll be looking at one of his books of poetry next month, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's a great book. I believe the book is Choose Your Path.
And what date is that? What is the third Sunday in February?
I can look it up and tell you.
Yeah, I'm gonna hopefully be out of hospital, and maybe it won't be that taxing for me to join. I'll do my very best. I really did enjoy it.
I'm looking at the 18th. Would be the third Sunday.
Thank you.
18th. Thank you. I just found it.
18th of February. I'm certain to be out of hospital by then, unless I've made. Okay. All right. So, well, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Dan. Dan and I live in the same community in the Annapolis Valley, which is a little tiny place in Nova Scotia. So it's a great privilege to have a local guy done good.
Thank you so much, Robin.
We talk to people from all over the world, so it's a pleasure to talk to someone who's just an hour down.
Yes. Hey, listen, you hang in there, be tough, and fight like a girl.
Yeah. Is this when I make my jokes about Tanya?
No, I've got.
Yeah, maybe not. No.
Yeah, I got 2 kids in figure skating, so yeah, let's just go fight like a girl, okay?
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.